Hello, I'm Jacinta Prunty, Holy Faith Sisters, and working with Solidarity with South Sudan. I want to share a little about social justice on this World Social Justice Day. The day itself, 20th of February every year, named by the United Nations, is all about fairness, equality, giving people a fair chance. It's about having the opportunity to shape your own life. It focuses on sufficient food, quality education, and above all, a decent work, so that these things, of course, are interlinked, one leading to another. There is no peace without justice. There is no justice. There is no social progress without peace. The example I'm going to use, first looking at Pope Francis. Pope Francis talks about this repeatedly. He talks about justice as something that must be done every day. We work at it every day. It's the reality, the divisions of those who have and those who have little. And we don't have to start it all anew every day. We do have lessons from the past. We can draw on what we know has worked, and we can face the new realities. So Solidarity itself, which is the name of the organization I'm working with, is all about social justice. And Holy Faith Sisters at this point have made a particular commitment to me and to the sisters who were there before me to work with Solidarity in South Sudan. You'll see, if you look at any of the Pope's lectures, you'll see that he uses the same kind of language as the United Nations social justice agenda. So there's no contradiction here. This is something for people of faith and for all people of goodwill to work towards. The big challenge of our day. Let's find out where South Sudan is. You'll see it here in the center of Africa, independent from Sudan in the north, running across the south part here where I am is Yambio, which is the southwest part of it, equatorial area. The capital city is Juba. If you follow the line of the River Nile all the way up north, all right up to Egypt, you'll be following the line of the northern part of South Sudan, which is reliant on floods and the work of the Nile River. Where I am, as I said, is equatorial, a forest and agriculture. This is where the college I'm in looks like from the air. The Google Maps has got there. And you see it's an area of lots of green, lots of little small houses. We're on the outside of the town of Yambio. This is the compound. And if you're studying South Sudan, there's masses of information available, all kinds of UN reports. It's one of the areas that have been extremely well studied. All of these you can use as reference yourself, available online. I've put together some of the stats on South Sudan. The ones I'd like to point out to in particular is the national language. English has been adopted as the official language and the language of instruction since independence in 1211. Another thing to point out is the huge number of the population are still displaced. They're still refugees, both inside South Sudan and in all the neighboring countries. I point out again the level of education, partly due to all of this displacement, is among the lowest in the world and much, much lower than the neighboring African countries. And when we look at the UN catalogue, the UN data index, they call it the Human Development Index, which is a mixture of different indicators, including, say, access to vaccination, years of primary schooling, how fairly distributed the wealth of the country is, standards of living, all of these things together. When you put this in these indicators together, the UN comes up with the Human Development Index, and the 2023, the most recent figures I can find, you'll see here Ireland is up here in the top 10. It's here at number 8, and it's been consistently in the top 10 for the last number of years. So it's really among the wealthiest, and I'm afraid you'll see the people of South Sudan, this country, is at the very bottom of this index. Out of 191 countries, it's down as number 191. Now we might talk about the exactness of this, but certainly South Sudan is among the poorest of the poor countries of the world. So it's got needs on every level. When you look at the map of South Sudan, the world map of the Human Development Index, you see South Sudan here, and then the neighbouring countries, which are also very poor, but I'm afraid South Sudan is the poorest of these very poor countries. The literacy index is one of the other key things, with so few children in primary school, very few in secondary school, adult literacy very low. And the summary of the teacher situation is there are very few permanent teachers, very few female teachers, and very few qualified teachers. So there are decades of catch-up required. And the reason for all of this is the timeline. You can see, I'll go to my own list. Timeline, you can see since independence in 2011, the war for independence, the non-stop war before independence, and then I'm afraid there has been a lot of war since. So over the past 68 years, South Sudan has suffered war for maybe 63 of those years. So there has been, I've noted it there in red, there has been a peace agreement which is holding since December 2018. So I went out to South Sudan for the first time in January 2019. So thankfully I only know peace, a fragile peace maybe, but peace in the country. But for those who were there ahead of me and for the people themselves, they have known decades and decades of war. And this, of course, is the principal reason behind the great poverty of the country. So any of the UN notes, the Pope's notes himself, it's still one, it's got a huge insecurity for food, climate change is affecting it, and that of course feeds into internal disputes and rivalries and violence. So let's look at South Sudan and the organization I'm with, Solidarity with South Sudan, which is made up of different religious congregations working together with the local people. So our community are made up of religious brothers, religious sisters from different orders. I'm Holy Faith. There are some Holy Faiths here before me, and I'm taking it up now. The congregations are working in, the organization Solidarity is working with training teachers where I am in Yambio. It's working training nurses and midwives in Wau, farmers and community leaders with sustainable agriculture in Remenze, which is near Yambio, and then pastor leaders, which would be catechists and parish leaders, especially through a kind of retreat centre in Kit, which is outside Yambio, outside the capital city of Juba, and that's done with the Religious Association for South Sudan. So let's go straight to where I'm working. I'm working in the Teacher Training College in Yambio. I see it as social justice in action. It's an example maybe of what can be done and what we're trying to do. So I'll give you a quick run through. This is what the college looks like itself from above. All one story, and classrooms, residential area, dormitories. It's a residential college with some in-service day pupils as well. This is what the town, the city of Yambio looks like. You see very little vehicles, mostly motorbikes, and some trucks, of course. And this is my local roundabout where I turn to go into the college. These are some of our local friends outside the gate of the college here. Local women collecting water. Big thing, collecting water all the time. These are some young friends. These are the children of George, the tailor who works with us. And then these are just some of the kids beautifully turned out on their way to school. There's a lot of herding of pigs, herding of goats. This is a rich agricultural area. Almost the full income of people is from working on their own small farms. It's what they call subsistence agriculture. And everyone has gardens, everyone has plots. And thankfully there's good rain, very good rain. Here are some of the local houses. You see how creative, how skilled the people are, making beautiful brick houses here from straight in front of them, the bricks made and the thatching there. So very resourceful, very skilled, and a hard life, but this very proud work here, very fine work. I've mentioned already, we're blessed with this equatorial climate, lots of beautiful fruits, and it's called, where I am, is the pineapple state. The college itself, I mentioned, it's one story. You can see they're all the time cleaning classrooms, painting desks. This is a view of the library itself from inside. This is the view coming up to the college from the community house. Now I'm starting this brief piece with the schools because this is what we're about. We're about preparing student teachers to go out to work in the schools of South Sudan. And as you'll already know from the stats, the schools are very poorly resourced. Children are wonderful, full of enthusiasm, full of joy, very, very keen to be in school. All the parents are paying fees. This classroom here outside our gate, Masia, which is one of the schools the student teachers go to work in. And this is an example taken from, this is the teacher in that classroom. You can see how little that teacher has to work with. And I just took a roll call from that day, just an example. I mean, over 90 kids in each of those classrooms in attendance that day, and very little furniture, very little textbooks. But very keen to learn, very anxious to build up. So the background for our teachers then, we're training them to be effective teachers, to work in very poor conditions, and to do the kind of things like bringing children up to the blackboard, using teaching aids, marking the exercise books for the children, the kind of things that, you know, children in other countries are well used to. But as our teachers have had very poor experience, very limited experience of school themselves, this is all, a lot of this is very, very new and very, very exciting. You see the delight of the children there. A big thing is with so few female teachers and so few females in school. They do start school, junior infants, preschool, primary, but very quickly the girls are taken out. So the big issue here is trying to include girls, getting the student teachers to include them in the classroom, have them up at the board, and then have female teachers themselves in the classrooms. That's a big, big transformation. One of the things we're really pushing. This is an example here of some very poor classrooms, but the real resource in the classroom is the qualified teacher. You can see here this young teacher doing a little science experiment with the child, dissolving sugar or sand or something, and doing a little science, and this other young teacher here, Clinton, being very resourceful, very creative, and getting on with it. Very positive attitude to challenging school conditions. Citizenship, active engagement, getting the kids to talk. I did mention English as the language of instruction. They need English for advancement. and having a good active school experience, including all children, girls and boys, and all tribes, is very important for the making of this new country. What's done by our student teachers in the classroom when they go on school practice is shared with the other teachers in the school, both trained and untrained. So we hope that this is having a good ripple effect. The local schools are very keen to have our student teachers practice. The other teachers are coming in, looking at them. And then, of course, we do have in-service, like day training as well. So we're expanding the net. I put this up as an example of the reviews from the local teacher, a local teacher who was very impressed with the quality of what our teachers were doing and the new teaching methods that they were bringing to the school. Very positive attitude to new learning. So a lot of effort goes in, everything about our teacher training, about our subject training. With the tutors themselves, this is our external examiner, these are tutors alongside the students themselves, preparing to be active teachers. In this case, they're in the library and they're preparing some read aloud and then some exercises with word cards and sentence strips and games to make the class alive and expand the vocabulary. Remember as well, of course, the children won't have much school books. This is an example here, preparing, making puppets for going out to teach in the classroom, to enliven the teaching, to get the children talking. Another example here, preparing other resources that they can bring and leave in these classrooms. So they're making their mark through their teaching practice, and then of course learning by doing, so that when they graduate they're putting this into practice. We're trying to make a holistic education where they have art, language, literacy, writing, everything interlinked, and a very full, rich experience for the children. Making resources, in this case, these group were making alphabets, which they were going to nail up in some classroom. And they're very keen on all this very active learning and very generous with their own talents. And displaying the children's work and making the kids feel important, preparing this kind of active learning, because again, as I said, the students themselves, the teachers, have not had this in their own background. A big aspect of this, because there are so few teachers in the country, most of our teachers will be in principalship, they'll be in leadership on graduation. So learning to manage the school resources, learning to lead the assembly, learning, in this case, these two young teachers here are looking after the stationery resources, keeping audits of property. These young men are fixing furniture. These are preparing protecting charts and making them fit for storage. So all of these very active things, preparing accounts, preparing budgets for school, because these young teachers are going out to lead the new South Sudan. They're the first generation of trained teachers in this country. A big aspect, of course, of education is enriching, in acknowledging or building on local culture, and the rich culture of South Sudan is certainly built up in the college, where we have every tribe, every part of the country is represented. It's a national college, so they're working together as friends together and sharing their local cultures, their local dance, their local music. It's the best of fun, I'll tell you that. I want to just mention St. Mary Magdalene Primary School, where Holy Faith Sisters worked. You see there, we worked there between 2013 and 2015, and then we passed on to another congregation who are Ugandan sisters, who have local sisters as well, and they are pushing the school forward. And even for a short while, the difference that even a few years of service can make is worth acknowledging. So this is a very, very fine school, one of the finest, and several of these young teachers have come to Solidarity to be trained and have already returned. So you see what was done a few years ago continuing to bear fruit. Sister Mary Nakatha is the principal now, and really moving the school forward. So we do a little, and if it's done well, it's got really can be the seeds of a very good future. In the college, we're anxious for the students to have a spirit of volunteerism, so that they're giving. It's not all, they're giving freely. In this case, we had language classes for local women who have not got any English and any English literacy, and our student teachers did one-on-one teaching with them. This is the graduation group, and this is the very lengthy and wonderful graduation day in the library, where the women demonstrated their ability to talk and to debate and to read in English. Another example of the teachers doing outreach is this computer tuition. We have a good computer room, and it's used for local women, young women for computer lessons, and for young children for computer lessons, because we are preparing people for the 21st century. We want, and today, to have computer skills is essential. This is Brother Chris Souze, the present De La Salle brother from India, and this is our Bishop, Bishop Eduardo, and these are some of the children graduating here with their. This is the creche, this is the baby minding service that was done outside the computer class, while the young mothers are in the computer class next door. Games Day, bringing children in for a Games Day on the college, important part of our education, including special days for disabled children. Children have the right to play, and all children have the right to be included. So this is putting some of these UN ideals, human rights, into practice here on the compound. And again, you'll see some of the student teachers here participating in an online seminar with Laudato Si. We do have limited internet access, but we do manage, and you can be quite creative with this. Again, local music making, this great big xylophone, lots of percussion, and really good music. I'm mentioning here finally one of our female, we had the first female president, and we're very keen on building in equality, equal opportunity, bringing girls to the forefront, and the difference that's made to the college itself. We're now pushing for a 60% intake of females to a 40% male for the residential course. In the in-service, the day course, we have no quotas, but we're making the compound much more safe and much more inclusive of young women, and we've made a very concerted effort for that. And Awut there, this very small young lady, was the first female president. She was outstanding. It's amazing the difference when you have, we've had three female presidents, male one semester, female the next semester. And the difference that makes to the climate of the college is extraordinary. I conclude, therefore, with saying what we do is just a little in the spirit of Margaret Aylward. But we're doing that little trusting in God. And we're working, I hope, building resilience in a sustainable way. Everything is about handing over, empowering, letting people do it themselves, do it in their own way in the future. We're there like the scaffolding at this time, and hoping and working towards a much more bright, much more fair, and much more equitable future. The people of South Sudan deserve that chance. Thank you.